Now, over 7,000 people have been murdered in South Africa between July and September this year. Police Minister Bheki Cele made the revelation during the release of the latest crime statistics today. Around 800 more people were murdered. That's compared to the same period last year. Cele says KwaZulu-Natal and the Western Cape recorded the most cases.
Argument, misunderstanding and incidents of road rage provocations accounted for 956 murders in the country. Vigilantism incidents claimed the lives of 528 people, while 362 people were killed during the commission of robberies. Police station in KwaZulu-Natal and Nyanga station in Western Cape registered the highest counts of murder during this period. A total of 274 counts of murder were reported in those three areas combined.
Now, at the same time, South Africa has seen a spike in rape cases.
Over 10,000 rape cases were opened with the SAPS between July and September this year. From a sample of 8,227 rape incidents that were perused, it was determined that 5,083, which is 62% of these incidents, occurred at the residence of the victims or perpetrator.
Let's now bring you some reaction. We're joined by Seoul City Institute CEO Phinah Kodisang. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on Newzroom Afrika. I mean, you've just listened to the police minister placing under the spotlight the high levels of abuse and murder of women. A shocking number. More than 10,000 rape cases were opened in this very short period. Very, very worrying. What's your take?
Thank you. My take is that these numbers are actually telling us the story that is the reality of women in South Africa. And we keep seeing every quarter the rise in numbers. So we should get to a point where we start interrogating not only the numbers, but the root causes of where these numbers come from. Because if we just keep looking at it as numbers and every quarter we wait, the minister comes, this is the report, we move on to the next quarter, we are not really dealing with the problem. We need to understand, for example, in KZN, that appears every quarter, amongst the highest. What is happening there? Why do we see these numbers every time in KZN going up? What are we not doing in KZN? How is the minister accounting for these numbers? Because as much as he's the one giving us the numbers, he's the one who must account for these numbers as well. So how in his reporting is he also accounting either for the failure or for whatever that it is that makes the numbers go up? So we need to really, as a country, to reflect on these numbers and what they are telling us each and every quarter.
I'd like us to expand on the solutions around the root causes in just a moment, but what's seemingly become more of a trend, especially coming out of the very hard lockdown of COVID-19, is that most of the rape incidents took place at the home of the victim or the home of the rapist. I mean, that in itself speaks to something very concerning.
Yeah, intimate partner violence, unfortunately, in South Africa is very high. Every year we see the numbers of intimate partner violence going up. And it's a space that, it's very hard to navigate in terms of intervention, because at the time it happens, the police can only respond and not really prevent, So that is why it's important for us to invest in preventing intimate partner violence through engaging with both men and women, but also addressing the socio-economic drivers of the scourge of gender-based violence. At the time of the lockdown, we only looked at the fact that we are locked in with perpetrators, and therefore we didn't actually even interrogate the fact that, most of them are unemployed. So what are we doing to address that issue so that people can then move out of the homes, go and engage in economic activities, come back into the home? It doesn't mean, it will totally eradicate, but I strongly believe it will reduce the number of GBVs or IPVs that we see in the homes, because tensions are very high, stress levels are very high, And, we know the pressure that men are put on in terms of providing. And with the high unemployment, we really are facing a crisis in not addressing one aspect of GBV, which is addressing the socio-economic or structural drivers of GBV.
So what do you think could be the other contributing factors when it comes to the very dramatic rise in rapes? Could one aspect be linked perhaps to the increased willingness of women to now come out, go to the police station and report these crimes?
Definitely. I mean, we do a lot of sensitization. We do a lot of awareness and mobilization. So on one side, these numbers are showing us that women are starting to take action, but on the other side, we cannot just look at it as women only now reporting, because if we do that, we also run the danger of perpetrators continuing with us looking the other way. Mm-hmm. So there's two sides to this from where I'm sitting. It's women increasingly reporting, but also it's GBV on the rise because of the many factors, including alcohol, which was also reported today through the report that the minister gave. And we are not addressing these intersecting issues. I think the way we look at it is not even intersectional. We look at it in siloed ways, and therefore when we say it's just men being men because society says, patriarchal society says they should treat women like that, we are not addressing the alcohol, we are not addressing the poverty, we're also not addressing issues of lights that are not there in communities, unattended buildings, which also we saw coming through in the stats. So there's many issues and many layers that needs to be addressed, at the same time, and also making sure that one is not left out of the whole pool of interventions that we are bringing to prevent.
I think some psychologists will generally agree that rape is mostly a crime rooted in non-sexual motivations, tied to all sorts of other hostilities like anger, and you mentioned the other factors like alcohol, and the need perhaps to exert power and control. What do you think or believe is missing when it comes to finding solutions on curbing this gruesome crime?
Inconsistency is a problem in South Africa. We are good at making the law, but we are not consistent in applying the law, and we are also not accounting for the failures. We blame each other, we blame the police. The police are saying we are not doing enough in our communities, the justice system is also failing. So all of us really need to be accountable, because for us to win this battle, it requires all of us really, and I always use the term, all hands must be on deck if we want to solve this problem. It should not be left to the police. It should not be left to NGOs like Soul City. It should not be left to the courts. It should be the responsibility that everyone places on themselves as a citizen of this country to ensure the safety of the next person. And where we fail to do that, the law must be consistently applied, but also we cannot continue hearing how DNA backlogs are still the order of the day in a country like ours that I believe has resources. And I always say again, COVID showed us that if our country is intentional about something, they pull all the resources together. They are able to get all ministers to really take charge and leadership in ensuring that at the time of COVID, we address that pandemic. The same effort, the same energy should be invested in fighting GBV. There must be no excuses. We really don't have time for excuses. We want action, and action must happen yesterday, not even today or tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion.